It's that moment that something feels off. Promotions are getting done, the mail's going out, the team is busy, really busy. So why does something feel off? You're looking at last month's numbers and the picture isn't clean. Revenue is inconsistent, reinvestment feels harder to defend than it used to, and your marketing director is putting in the hours, the agency is hitting their deadlines, everyone is doing their job. And yet you ask the simple question, is all this driving the business? And no one has a clear answer. It's probably not the first month you felt this way. Welcome to Drive Time Marketing. Hi there, and welcome back to Drive Time Marketing, the show where we help casino marketers turn strategy into action and insights into impact. I'm Julia Carcamo, and today we're talking about whether you need a consultant. Imagine this. You've been working around it for a while. The conversation with your marketing director has gone something like, we need to look at why reinvestment is creeping up for 2 quarters now. The agency presented a deck that looked great in the room but didn't change anything in the building, and your VP of marketing is sharp but stretched. You're not sure whether the issue is a flawed strategy or simply poor execution. Some weeks you tell yourself it's fine, and some weeks you don't. This isn't a failure of effort, it's the gap between activity and strategy. Tactics without a frame underneath them eventually plateau, and you, as the GM, are the first to feel it. The numbers land on your desk. The board's questions land on your desk. The reinvestment defense lands on your desk. Your team is busy executing, but you can't tell whether that execution is moving the business or just maintaining it. So you start thinking about whether you need outside help. A consultant. Someone who can look at it all with fresh eyes and tell you what's missing. Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Either way, the worst thing you can do is hire the wrong consultant for the wrong problem. That costs you money, momentum, and team trust, and you don't have spare quantities of any of those. Before you hire a casino marketing consultant, you have to diagnose what you actually need. Not every problem that looks like a marketing problem is a consulting problem. That's the first thing worth getting honest about. If your team is executing well but doesn't have enough hands, you don't need a consultant. You need an agency, a contractor, or another hire. A consultant who comes in to do execution work is either being mishired or is mispositioning their service. Either way, you'll be paying strategy rates for tactical labor. If your real problem is operational, such as floor mix or service standards, F&B scores, hotel inventory issues, a marketing consultant isn't going to fix that. Marketing can only sell what operations delivers. The strongest campaign in the world won't outrun a service problem. And if your database analyst left and segmentation is suddenly missing, that's a hiring problem or a vendor problem. A strategist isn't going to run your monthly mail file. Now, when does a consultant actually make sense? Well, when your team is doing great work, but the work isn't laddering up to a clear strategy, that could be a situation. When you have multiple vendors running in parallel, your agency, database, signage, digital, social, and no one is stitching them together into a single picture. The last one is more common than people admit. You've got the agency producing creative, the database analytics firm doing segmentation and pulling lists, your signage partner is handling the on-property work, and someone else is running paid and organic social. Each one is competent, each one is doing their job, but ask any of them what the strategy is, and you'll get 4 different answers because each vendor is optimizing for the slice of work in front of them. Nobody owns the whole picture. That's a consulting problem, not a vendor problem. When your marketing director is talented but still learning, they need a sounding board with more reps than they currently have. When you, the GM, need an outside read on whether the current plan is the right one or just the plan you've been running, when a leadership transition, a departing CMO or new VP or a vacancy leaves a gap that requires interim coverage or a clear roadmap before the next hire. The pattern is this. A consultant is the right answer when the gap is in judgment, strategy, or experience, not capacity. If you can't articulate which one of those gaps you're trying to fill, you're not ready to hire someone yet. There's work to be done before the conversation starts. Not all casino marketing consultants do the same work. Here's something the industry doesn't really talk about clearly enough. Casino marketing consultant is a category that encompasses very different roles. If you don't know which one you're looking for, you'll end up evaluating the wrong people for the wrong work. There are roughly 4 archetypes: Most engagements blend them, but the lead mode is what matters. First, there's the interim operator. The interim operator steps in to run the marketing function for a defined window, usually during a transition, a turnaround, or a period when leadership is being recruited. They do the work, not just the thinking. This is where fractional CMO engagements typically live. You hire this person when you need someone to run the department, make the calls, and own the calendar, not just advise on it. Then there's the strategic advisor. They build the roadmap. They sharpen the team's thinking. They sit in on planning and ask the questions nobody on the inside is asking. They don't run day-to-day operations. The fit there is when you have a capable team that needs better direction, not more direction givers. Now, the specialist has deep expertise in one area. It could be loyalty program design, database segmentation, media planning, brand strategy. They come in for a defined period with a defined deliverable and then leave when it's done. They're right when you've identified the specific gap. You don't need to rethink everything else. And finally, there's the generalist sounding board. They work directly with you or your VP. Fewer deliverables, more counsel, the right call when you have the team and the strategy, but lack an outside peer to think with. Someone who isn't trying to win an internal political battle when they give you their read. Most consultants do more than one of these, but pay attention to which one they lead with because that tells you what they're built for. A specialist hired to provide strategic advisory services is going to disappoint. A strategic advisor asked to run a department for 90 days will burn out, or worse, won't burn out, but will run it in the wrong way. The work is matching the archetype to the gap. After the break, we're going to talk about what good casino marketing consulting looks like. This summer, Casino Marketing Bootcamp is bringing you 2 different ways to get stronger. First, there's Casino Marketing Bootcamp Midwest, happening August 4th, 5th, and 6th in Tulsa. This is where we really put the bootcamp into Casino Marketing Bootcamp. It's hands-on, practical, and built for casino marketers who need time to step back, think clearly, and build stronger marketing plans and calendars. The tagline says it best. It's where your ideas become your blueprint for success. Then later in the month, on August 24th and 25th, we're launching the new Casino Marketing Bootcamp, Direct Marketing. I'm especially excited about this one because direct marketing is still one of the most powerful engines we have as casino marketers. This event is all about helping you make every list, every offer, and every dollar work harder. So whether your team needs to build a plan or improve one of the most important performance engines in your department, there's a Casino Marketing Bootcamp for you this summer. And like all of our events, both include early bird pricing and discounts for groups of 3 or more. You can learn more and register at casinomarketingbootcamp.com. Welcome back. There's a difference between a casino marketing plan and a casino marketing strategy. A plan tells your team what's happening next month. A strategy helps your team understand why those choices matter, which customers they're meant to influence, and how success is going to be measured. A consultant who can deliver only the first one is not a strategic consultant. They're a planner with a higher day rate. Good consulting changes how decisions are made, not just what gets done. The right consultant helps your team understand the why behind the calendar, not just the what. They don't replace your team's judgment, they upgrade it. Here are some markers of consulting work that's effective. 1, your team is sharper at the end than at the start. They're asking better questions, defending their choices more clearly, and offering recommendations rather than waiting to be told. The work product is usable after the consultant leaves, not a 60-slide deck that lives on a shared drive nobody opens, but actual frameworks, processes, and tools your team can use in the work. Recommendations are tailored to your specific market, players, and competition, not a template that could apply to any property in the country. The consultant asks more questions than they answer during the first 30 days. If they show up with answers in week 1, they're not consulting, they're pitching you. Another marker is they tell you what not to do as often as what to do. Strategy is as much about subtraction as it is addition. And the bad version is worth naming directly because you've probably seen some of it. The deck and disappear consultant who delivers the strategy and leaves before implementation begins. The one who bulldozes past your director and takes over the room instead of asking about your team's capabilities. The one whose recommendations could apply to any casino anywhere because they were written for a generic regional operator who doesn't exist. The one who can't tell you in plain English what they delivered for their last client last quarter. You're not paranoid for noticing those patterns, you're paying attention. One more thing worth saying about the work itself. The right consultant should be making your job easier within the first 60 days, not harder. Not because everything is solved, but because the conversation with your team should start to feel cleaner. Decisions should have more shared language behind them. The marketing meeting should run differently. If you're 2 months in and the work feels like one more thing to manage instead of something that's lifting weight off your desk, that's worth flagging early. Good consultants want that feedback. The wrong ones will tell you to be patient. Now, when you sit down with a consultant, whether it's the first call or the third, the questions you ask shape the conversation. Most discovery calls go poorly because the GM tries to be a polite host and the consultant tries to make a sale. Neither person does the work of determining whether this is a fit. So here's some questions that reveal something. There are 12 of them, and I've organized them by what they reveal. Bring them and use them. First, questions about fit. What kind of engagement is this? Is it interim leadership, strategic advisory, or specialized project work? You're listening for whether they can answer plainly. A vague answer here is a flag. What does success look like in 30, 60, and 90 days? And who actually does the work? You or someone on your team I haven't met yet. Now there's questions about the work itself. What happens to the work product when you leave? How will my team be different at the end of this engagement than they are today? And if we started Monday, what's the first thing you'd want to look at? Along with organizational fit, there's market fit. What's your point of view on regional casino strategy specifically? Not destination markets, not casinos generally, regional. Where have you worked that's most like our market? And what did you learn there that applies here? And how do you think about competing against all leisure spending, not just other casinos? Now, there's questions about how they think. Tell me about an engagement that didn't go well and what happened. This is one of my favorites. You can also ask, when have you told a client they didn't need to hire you? Or what's a piece of conventional casino marketing wisdom you actively disagree with? You're not buying hours, you're buying judgment. Make sure the person across the table from you has some. That last set of questions is the most revealing. A consultant who can't answer those honestly, who deflects or who turns it back on you, who has no examples, probably isn't the one. But here's the bigger point. Bring the questions and then pay attention to how the consultant engages with them. The right one will push back. They'll ask their own questions. They'll tell you when you're solving for the wrong problem. They won't just answer it like it's a quiz. You're not looking for someone who knows all the answers. You're looking for someone who knows how to think. If you want a printable version of these questions to take into your next consulting conversations, I have a download that's part of the Casino Marketing Toolkit collection. I'll include a link in the show notes. Now, after that meeting ends, ask yourself one question. Not, did I like them? That's a poor predictor of whether the engagement will move the business. Many likable consultants deliver nothing. Many less warm operators deliver real work. The better question is, did this person make me think differently about my own business in the last hour? Did they name a pattern you hadn't named? Ask a question you didn't have an answer to. Point out something you'd been working around without realizing you were working around it. A consultant who leaves you with the exact same frame you walked in with is unlikely to change the trajectory of the work. The right one shifts something. Not necessarily everything, but something. That doesn't mean every consultant who challenges you is the right one. Some are just contrarian for show. But the right one will challenge you in a way that's specific, grounded, and actually useful. And you'll know the difference. And if after all this you decide the answer isn't a consultant at all, that's a real outcome too. Sometimes the right move is to hire a stronger marketing director. Sometimes it's rebalancing your vendor stack. Sometimes it's sitting down with your existing team to rewrite the strategy together. The point of this work isn't to land a contract. The point is to make sure that whatever you decide, you do so with purpose. Hiring a consultant is a strategic decision, not a procurement decision. Treat it that way, and the conversation becomes much more useful for both sides. Thanks for joining me on this week's edition of Drive Time Marketing.